speak during public comment on something that is not on our agenda today? Okay, seeing none. Glad we have public comment though, right? It's a great opportunity to hear from people. Item number 2 is to approve the minutes from October 22nd, 2020 of the Solano360 Implementation Committee meeting minutes. They are before you. So for those of us here, if you've had a chance to look through them, anybody want to offer an approval of the minutes?
I'll offer approval.
Thank you. Thank you. With that, I guess we'll do a voice vote.
Yes, ma'am. Board Member Spearing? Councilmember Dew?
Yes.
Mayor McConnell? And Chairwoman Hannigan?
Yes. Okay, with that, we will move on to receiving a presentation by JLL. I don't know why I said ILL. On your proposed uses for the Solano360 project at our Solano County Fairgrounds.
Great. James, do you have the controls?
Yes, I do. I do have the controls, and as part of this process, we have the 2 items that we're going to seek action on. They're up on the screen. At the end of the presentation, will be an opportunity for the committee to ask questions, provide comment, and then what we are asking is for the committee to provide input and then affirm IRG JLL's proposed uses consistent with the adopted specific plan, and we'll talk about how we go with the next steps as part of that action item. But obviously, if you have any questions during the presentation, let us know. If you want us to go back and look at anything, we'd be happy to do that as well. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mike Lindenlaub from the IRG JLL team.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having us this afternoon. It's good to see you all again. And Mayor McConnell, very nice to meet you, and looking forward to sharing with you some ideas we have for what we think is just a terrific piece of land and a huge opportunity that we're very excited about. James, thanks. So over the last several months since we've seen you all last, we've gone away and done our study on everything that has to do with the site, both, the strengths, the challenges, the opportunities. We've done our market research. We've spoken to probably every major broker in the area and outside of the area. We've looked at a number of different studies. We've talked to architects and planners and tenants, all in an effort to come back to you to tell you what we think is the best course of action to create an amazing site. Now, I want to sort of stop and define what we believe is an amazing site. This is a very iconic property at the corner of 2 major highways, the I-80 and California 37. Very visible, with an opportunity to really be something of a destination. What we want to do is implement a strategy that rolls out that destination so that in the shortest time possible, people speak about this as a place that they want to go, they want to stay, they want to visit, they want to come back. There are unique elements and icons within this piece of property that are discussed and spoken about. That's our goal. And how we go about implementing that and the success that we have in doing so is crucial to the economics of the property to make sure it works. So, for example, we can't simply implement some product types that we think are going to work in the long run if they don't work in the short run. We would only be setting ourselves up for failure. But we think that through implementing the plan that we have as suggested here in Draft Plan 1, that we are going to be successful. And so we want to share with you some of those ideas. James? So we're going to use this plan layout because it generally works to look at densities, it looks at layouts, it looks at open space, it looks at the central water feature, which we think is important, and the relationships as such. But I wouldn't pay too much attention to exactly where things are, because our next step is to work with professional planners to take all of the information that we've learned so far, all of the information we will learn from the various consultants, and the feedback that we get from you to place these product types where they need to be. But I would say that what's important as we move forward is that we create a cohesive community. We don't want a disparate community where things are split up and divided up. And that's important because as we go into the phasing of the property, we have to be mindful that what we develop today is going to work integral to what's coming in the future. So it's very important to us. So we're going to use this as a working plan so that we can discuss what's where, but don't pay too much attention to exactly how it's laid out. We've got a lot of work to do. James?
And for reference, this is the plan that they submitted as part of their proposal. They've not adapted or modified it based on discussions. This is purely from the proposal, and it's a starting point.
Yeah. So this is the site now, and of course, our great neighbor across the street is Six Flags. And James, next. And if we were to just overlay our plan as schematiced out, this is what it would look like. And you can see that it's all of a sudden this really exciting piece of land adjacent to another exciting business, Six Flags, at the center of a city, at the crossroads of two major roads. And so very exciting with great opportunities. Just to give you a sense of what this thing is going to be, when it's fully built out. But this is not without its challenges, James. And so what we've discovered is three major challenges, none of which we think are insurmountable, all of which we think we can easily, not easily, but challenges that we can meet if we plan this properly. And so the first one is this cost to develop versus current market rental rates. And what that means is that it's expensive to build a lot of this product. This is one of the most expensive markets in the country to construct. But we're not quite getting the rents to justify the development cost of a lot of those product types yet. That doesn't mean we're not going to get there. What we feel is that if you were to draw a circle around this property in the city of Vallejo, that everything is moving in our direction. It's just a matter of time. The three rules to real estate aren't location, location, location. It's timing, timing, timing. And so as this market comes to us, we want to be ready to roll out and maximize the economic opportunities that are available to us on the site. So that's how we're going to manage number one. We're going to speak more about that. The second one is the upfront cost of infrastructure. Because there's little to no infrastructure on the site currently to meet the needs of our plan moving forward, there's a heck of a downstroke upfront in investment to create the kind of infrastructure we need to implement the rest of the project. And so because, a lot of that is at the front end, it's difficult to generate the returns and develop the kind of product type we need for the property to be successful. It's a heck of a risk, and we want to mitigate that risk. And finally is the access to and from the site. Fairgrounds Drive coming from the north off the California 37 and from the south off Redwood Drive, is it? Sorry. Are our two major access points to and from the site. And so how we manage that is going to be important. We already know that in the fall time, Six Flags has challenges getting to the site. Well, can you imagine when we layer on all of our properties, what kind of challenge there might be? But it can be, this is a problem that can be solved if planned properly and if implemented properly over time. And so all three of these things are challenges that can be met and overcome if we're careful about the way we develop the site. James? So after draft plan one, we turn to our consultants and we say, take a look at what we have planned, and we get their feedback. What are our fatal flaws? What are our issues? How do we overcome some of the plans that and some of the challenges that I've laid out? And more importantly is your feedback. What do you think? What do you want? What have we missed? What are some of the opportunities that we're missing? So your feedback is crucial, again, to the successful implementation of what we're going to call draft plan 2. And that's where we get more specific. That's when we don't use the plan that I just showed you, but it's a little bit more defined in terms of what goes where, based on your feedback and the feedbacks of the crucial consultants. James? So we think that the guiding principles of the specific plan are excellent, well drafted, and guiding principles that we'd like to follow in how we roll out the plan. And so I want to repeat these quickly for you, and then we've summarized those in a few words and related those to each of the individual product types to make sure that we are meeting the guiding principles of the specific plan. So the first one, generate revenue for Solano County and the city of Vallejo, create jobs and ensure long-term economic sustainability. So let's call that jobs and economic sustainability. Number 2, establish a unique place with an unmistakable identity that serves as a destination for visitors as well as pedestrian-friendly community gathering place. Very important as a sense of place. This isn't just a community with a whole bunch of buildings. It really has to work well together. We want to see people out there walking, meandering, meeting new people, meeting their neighbors. So the sense of place is crucial to us, very important. And by the way, it's a heck of an opportunity given where it is and what it is. We just see that as a real opportunity for us. Number 3, explore a mix of complementary land uses, including retail, commercial, hospitality, recreational, residential, family, and youth-oriented educational and civic uses that seamlessly integrate with the fare of the future. So let's call that diverse balance of uses. Number 4, explore increased physical connectivity and synergy with Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, downtown Vallejo, the waterfront, and existing commercial operations. So synergy with the community, very important. Provide pedestrian, bicycle, vehicular, and transit facilities that foster access to and from and within the site, pedestrian friendly. And finally, incorporate sustainable green principles in all aspects of development. Let's call that environmental sustainability. So we're going to look, and we want to make sure that each one of our product types meets at least one or more of these guiding principles as we implement these product types. James? Again, this is our working draft plan. So I just want to go around quickly and speak about what these product types are, and then we're going to speak more in detail about those, just to give you a sense of reference. This is the existing Courtyard by Marriott up on the corner, James. Next to it, on this plan at least, would be the proposed transit center. And again, why is it there? Don't worry about that too much. I just want to, what we want to point out here, the intent of pointing it out is that it's somewhere on the site. It could be there, but it could be elsewhere, James. The film studios and possible backlot, James. The commercial office space. This is what we call neighborhood commercial with residential and potentially a great space for the library. What we call maker space. Entertainment retail. The central water feature, which is right on the entertainment retail. The hotel component.
Sandra Braun, please report to General Services.
The field house and expo and fair facilities. And the multifamily residential. And then that piece down at the bottom is a future development site that is more than likely a future mixed-use site. So how do we do this? Well, it's our belief that early on we need what we call site activators. Those product types that will immediately be successful from a market point of view. The in-demand product type that will allow us to get in some of the infrastructure up front and generate the businesses and begin to bring some notoriety to the site, some excitement to the site. Once we get those site activators in place, that's going to bring interest to the property. That's going to allow us to follow back on with some of the other product types that may not be necessarily justified early in the development. So we need to bring this attention to the site. We need to generate some excitement to the site. We call those site activators. James? So I'm going to speak about the site activators first, and then we're going to speak about the follow-on product types. So the film studios, we think, is a terrific site activator. And I spoke about this last time, and I think it bears repeating. We think that the studios offer great opportunities. I'd like you to think about this site as almost sort of an entertainment-oriented site. Studios are desperately needed in Northern California. We have experience with studios. We can build the studios. We think that we know that they bring great jobs, sustainable jobs, long-term interest, but there's also this kind of intrinsic value to studios. It's kind of that mystique of the studios, if you will. They offer just really great opportunities of notoriety. That's where that Netflix film was filmed. They're filming something else there. You know, Apple leases a lot of that space and does a lot of production in there. But it also works if we were to do some entertainment with Six Flags, with what we have going on elsewhere on the site. We can do live streamed concerts in the studios or live streamed events in the studios. And it also works with the Fair of the Future as facilities. So we see those as really a great site activator that's ready to go right now because there's demand for that space right now. James? And the way it works, these are big buildings, but they can be adorned with these great graphics, again, that speak about the great new production that's coming up or something that's been filmed there. It creates a terrific mystique, James. And again, how we deal with the entree to these studios is something we can really play up on and really make it look terrifically attractive. James, can you go back one slide? I missed something I wanted to point out here. So this is what we'll speak about on each one of the product types, that it's a commercial entertainment venue for production of film content within a controlled environment. And if you're at all confused about what it is, I don't mind explaining more to you. And that it meets in the specific plan categories, entertainment, mixed use, and commercial. It fits within that category. And the specific plan values that it meets, and we could argue that it meets some others, but certainly we know it meets number 1, jobs and economic sustainability, number 3, diverse balance of uses, and number 4, synergy within the community. James? Makerspace. This is something that we are really, really excited about. This is a product type that is high demand right now, and we could not ask for a better location than this site to provide this makerspace. James? So what makerspace is really what the name implies. It's makers of goods and products and services that are available to the greater community. So boutique industrial-esque space for makers, distributors, and retail promoters of bespoke goods and services. It meets the entertainment, mixed use, and commercial components of the specific plan, and really it meets all 6 of the components of the specific plan values. James? So what this is are buildings that are between about 5,000 to 20,000 square feet in size. They're flexible buildings that allow things to be made and things to be promoted. So if you can imagine spaces like this, James, next page, that are really these creative buildings that allow there to be a brewery or a winery. Maybe there's a guy that makes bicycles. Maybe there's a guy that makes furniture there. That it allows them to have that business, but also front-facing. So it is instantly a retail opportunity. This is where people get off the freeway and they get to come and enjoy a new brewery, a new winery. You know, we've had some conversations with some folks up in Napa Valley where there's this whole contingent of small family farms up in Napa that have no way of promoting or distributing their wines or their farms. Wouldn't it be great to have a wine collective here where you can actually see the process and be a part of it and have this sort of winery? Or how about a brewery with the same thing going on, or a juicery, or a coffee roastery, or to be able to go in and get a bespoke custom-made bicycle or custom-made piece of furniture? We know that these spaces are in demand. There's an insatiable appetite for these things. They're intertwined with some terrific landscaping. If you can imagine DG trails, you know, great landscaping, or urban gardens. This is a project in Paso Robles called Tin City, and I would invite you all to go and look at this. It is kind of off the beaten path. It has nowhere near the visibility of this site. You almost feel like you're going in the wrong direction, but when you get there, good luck finding a place to park. Now you got to walk to these great buildings, and it's just alive with excitement and so many things going on. What we like about this too is that it's flexible. If somebody doesn't work out, you haven't built an expensive retail outlet for one particular use. If they don't work, there's more people that can take that space. It's very well located north of the expensive Bay Area, south of expensive Napa, with the agricultural community and the maker community. We think this is a really, truly dynamic product type that will really activate the site, and we're very excited about this. And we also think it really relates well to what's to come later in our entertainment retail. Once we've activated the site with this makerspace product, and we got a ton of people coming here, it's going to be so much easier than to bring in this entertainment retail in later phases. Next, please, James. Neighborhood commercial, again, a site activator, James. These are the grocery stores, the pharmacy, and other daily staple needs that are retail oriented. So these are more the traditional sprouts, if you will. It meets the entertainment, mixed use, and commercial components of the specific plan, and it meets almost every one of the specific plan values as outlined. And again, these are the sprouts, the pharmacy, that are going to be needed to create a well-rounded community. And we know that there is demand for this particular product type on site, and we think it's a great complement to the studios, to the makerspace, and to some of the other things we have coming along in phase 1. And again, if you get these site activators going, it makes the job easier to recruit the kind of tenancy we want in later phases. And again, this is just an example. What I want to point out in this graphic to the lower right is that it's a little bit difficult because of the construction cost to get retail below and residential above for a variety of reasons. You've got columns, you've got a whole bunch of issues that make that difficult then to get the best rental rate for that retail, and it's expensive to develop. But you still can achieve a mixed use kind of feel to the space by having these spaces adjacent. So the upper left picture shows that that might be a market that's surrounded by some multifamily. It works quite well. And so that is something that we definitely want to consider to try to get some residential up into this part of the property. Next, please, James. And that brings us to infrastructure, open space, and central water feature. Now, it might seem obvious that it's a site activator, but it truly is, and we wanted to pull this up on the presentation because it's crucial to us. It doesn't work for us to, put the underlying infrastructure in some of the roads and the gas lines and the power lines and things like that if we can't make this an exciting destination and attractive to people so that they can envision what's to come. And what we mean by that are the central water feature, the trails, the bike paths. We think that that kind of infrastructure is super important. And not only that, the functional infrastructure like the water channel to the south side of the site. Next, please, James. We think is very important to create an aesthetic appeal and an excitement, again, about what's to come in later phases. So these really represent our site activators. We are convinced that these are in-demand spaces that will create a lot of excitement for the space and will help us as we go down the road to spaces, to product types that we don't think are necessarily site activators, but are going to represent a huge economic boom to the site. James? And again, just some of the infrastructure. We're keenly aware of the urban gardens, which we think are very important. We love this idea on the lower right of having, this sort of wellness feature. We love the signage, mile 1, mile 2, stretching areas. We love the bike trails and the bike paths. We love the walking trails next to DG paths. We think all of that is important to create this sense of place. James? And that brings us to our follow-on product type. Next, please. Entertainment retail. This is retail entertainment venues. It's our traditional food and beverage product type that meets the entertainment mixed-use components of the specific plan. It meets, again, 5 of the 6 specific plan values. Now, I'm going to let Greg speak to some of this to define it even better. But the reason that we don't consider this a site activator is because you've got to attract the right tenants. And it's going to be very difficult. We're not saying that we're not going to try to do this, but it's very difficult to get those tenants to come up here who are going to want way too much because we haven't proven concept yet. It's going to be much easier to get that tenancy up here once we've proven concept and we can point to all of the people that are coming to the site because of the site activators. Greg, if you want to share a little bit more about this.
Sure. These are the uses that I think, will ultimately be the connective tissue of the site that bring both local community in and our regional draws to the site that play into some of our neighbor Six Flags hands in terms of a place to dine and be entertained in addition to the park itself. Lots of restaurants that will look, through a created list of operators to come in here in a variety of different restaurants that are both full-service sit-down restaurants and smaller fast casuals to hit a variety of different price points. We like people like Social Bowling, Punchbowl Social, Top Golf. We think there might be a play for a movie studio, or I'm sorry, a theater here. A lot of talk about theaters, but this is the new wave of theaters. If we're talking about an Alamo Draft House or a Studio Movie Grill, heavy on food and beverage, smaller theaters, smaller operations, not your big 12-plex anymore. These are 40,000 feet, half the size of what you're normally thinking about in the theater world. But we think there's an opportunity to bring that kind of entertainment to the site, to create this connective tissue, if you will, from all the component uses. This is your downtown at the end of the day.
And this fills out that waterfront, Main Street, interactive with the makerspace. We think it's going to be an incredible complement. We've also, there are things like REI, Bass Pro Shops. If we can get those tenants, so it's not only food and beverage, but it is these interactive retail components that, again, we're going to need to prove concept before we can go out and attract those people. I think that they want to be here. It's just a question of proving concept to them and proving audience, and we're going to do that through those activators. James? The hotel. Next, please. So the hotel, we feel like it's important. It is likely a select service, what they call a soft brand. And the reason we want to go soft brand because we think, and again, that this is affiliated with a large brand, but it allows us this kind of custom component, if you will. It allows us to kind of scheme it or theme it around who we are. And I think it's important that no matter what we do on this site, that we go back and we pay attention to our core narrative and our core values of whatever that is. And, you know, so far we think it's this kind of Bay Area meets agricultural, you know, kind of component, but we love this fair thing. Whatever it is we define it to be, we need to follow that narrative through the entire property with our signage, with our trash cans on site, with the way we do, you know, our walkways and things. We have to keep playing up on whatever that narrative is. And so the hotel provides us this great opportunity. We put this picture in on the lower left of the Marine Barracks on Mare Island. You know, maybe we pick up on some of that recognizable architecture in the area. The lower right is the Daytona Motor Speedway, just to point out an example that, man, that hotel looks like you'd see it at the Daytona Motor Speedway. And so how we design the hotel in the future is important to how it relates to the site. But the hotel isn't something that we would see right away. Again, once we've activated the site, we bring this interest to the site, we can't help but add another hotel with more hotel rooms. And we want to make sure we have the right spot designated for that hotel that's visible from the road, that relates to the property. And so the hotel is something that we think is important once we've activated the site. James? Feature attraction, next please. And this is our Top Golf and our Dreddy Motor Speedway. These activities that, again, could you attract those earlier? Possibly. But would you have better luck and better economics for all of us down the road? Absolutely. And so activating the site and bringing that interest to the site is going to behoove us as a group to attract these kind of tenants. And it's the active and interactive entertainment venue. The Top Golf, more than likely, or the golf concept, let's say, is something that's more, it's going to be this virtual concept, which is sort of the wave of the future. They're getting away from the 6-acre true to form driving range, and they're doing things, you know, that is more virtual. Very successful, smaller footprint, a lot more flexible than some of these, you know, these larger venues. And again, we think it meets 5 of the 6 specific plan core values. Commercial office, next please, James. Now, we're going to have little of any luck. And again, this isn't to say that we're going to go out and try to attract an anchor tenant for commercial office to get it up earlier. We just don't think that that's very likely that we're going to attract the right tenant to be able to build a critical mass of commercial office. But what we know for sure is that in the future, this is going to be in-demand space. Because once we've created the sense of place in Vallejo, you don't have to drive. I think that there's going to be high demand for the tenancy on this site. And to create some really great space where you can come here, put your business here, walk to shops and restaurants, have these great entertainment venues, and by the way, live on site with our residential, we think that it's going to be very much in demand. And you have to have it. It really begins to tie the site. You've got all the various, you know, different product types and different food groups, and it is a great balance to the site. And so while we don't see it as an immediate need or an immediate development opportunity, more than, you know, certainly it's going to be something we've got to have down the road. The Fieldhouse Expo, again, you know, this is crucial to the flavor of the site. The fair is something that is a huge opportunity, and the components of the grounds are super important to us. And we want to develop the correct venues on the space to make sure that we accommodate the fair of the future. So really understanding what the current opportunities are for the fair and what the fair is missing out on because they don't have the right facilities, I think is something important. Next, please, James. And so we see this building or this series of buildings as our venues or venue that services everything from competitions and sporting events to, you know, farmers markets, to concerts, to community services like vaccination. So creating the right venues is very important for us. And it's a year-round venue. It services the entire community year-round. It gets people excited for the fair. And, you know, we see this as sort of like, you hint at the fair that's coming once a year. You want to get people back during the fair and get them excited about what these fairs could be. And we can do that through what we're doing in the field house and on those fairgrounds. So it's very important. And then finally is this multifamily residential, which is an absolutely needed component. It would be a site activator, but we think it's a little too expensive right now, and the market rents maybe quite aren't there. We're not going to ignore it. We're still going to pursue it. We don't quite see it as a site activator. We'd like to get some of those site activators up and really create an appeal. Next, please, James. and to be able to develop the space. And we're very open-minded about this. You know, we think that within 10 years, there won't be anything but modular development, which will really bring down the cost and enhance the quality. So we think that is definitely a development type that we'll look at. We also think it'd be nice to introduce a little bit of retail so that it is more of a well-rounded site. This picture on the lower left is a great example of how you might get in a little retail down in that multifamily residential without having to go up to the north part of the site or the part of the site that has the neighborhood commercial. We happen to find this Fairgrounds Coffee, which we thought was perfect. Let's go try to get them. But you could do a little bit of this in that multifamily. It doesn't have to be exclusively multifamily. Create some neighborhood character, I think, is really important. And if you can imagine sort of the DG trails, the walking paths, the bike trails, the urban gardens, a little bit of the coffee shop down in that multifamily, we just think it could be just a wonderful community that complements and ties into the balance of the community. The lower right represents more of a townhome concept, walk-up townhome, which we think would be super popular and something we'd be very excited about. Next, please, James. So those are the various product types. Again, think of this as an entertainment venue. Everything works together. Really, one cannot do without the other, but we've got to get the site activated, bring notoriety to the site, bring attention to the site, bring excitement to the site, and then layer on these different product types so that it all works together to make it one unique and exciting destination. And so that's what we've got for you today, and we'd really appreciate your comments and your feedback.
All right. Well, thank you, Mike. Appreciate your, I don't know how to say it, but you do a great job at describing all of these different pieces. I know why you're in the position. Good job, Justin.
That's why we like.
Yeah.
Right.
I followed your journey. And before I ask on my colleagues to comment, I did want to ask a question because this is a topic of discussion in many government spaces, and that is in terms of access, in terms of equity. And just thinking about that as maybe one of the thoughts that sort of threads through this process. We are a very socioeconomically diverse city, the city of Vallejo, certainly in that neighborhood, but countywide. And so ensuring that there's an equity lens that is put on as we're creating this wonderful space to include everybody. All right, with that,
Did you want a reaction to that?
I would love that.
I couldn't. I don't think we could agree. We couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I mean, Justin can speak to the success that IRG has had in the Midwest of really providing jobs, turning around neighborhoods, creating small businesses, minority-owned small businesses is something I think that the company takes, great pride in. It's a huge opportunity.
Yes, exactly,
And
which is why I brought it up.
The culture diversity in Vallejo is it creates a destination for sure, and we see it as something we definitely want to take advantage of, is to create this really great, unique sense of place.
Yeah,
So for sure.
wonderful. Thank you for that. All right, I'll leave it to those of us on the dais. Anybody want to speak up? Mayor McConnell, you questions?
Right, first out here, I think I'll defer and hear what everybody else has to say.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. Supervisor Sperring.
Thank you for the presentation. For me, you're hitting all the right spots. I like the site is interactive, which I've been asking for from the beginning. I really am intrigued about the site activation concept. I really think that, as I travel around the country or places I've seen, that has really been very successful. And so, I like that you're including that in this. The scale of the project, I think you're pretty close to hitting it just right. And, it has to have that sort of pedestrian scale where you feel comfortable. You don't feel like you're in the shadows of these buildings or these various elements that you're putting into it. And the way you're presenting it, I really feel that pedestrian comfort is really looks like you're putting that into this project. The bike and ped, I just want to emphasize again those public spaces. I really want to make sure that it's woven into this whole project, that it just isn't in segments of it, that you really can navigate through this whole thing, and you can, it's kind of an adventure going through, and you might find a place to eat, you might find a place to shop, and it looks like you're doing that. And so, I just have a little concern as you showed those various shaded areas. I just don't want them to come, as it gets developed, as, these separate places on their own. So just got to make sure we don't do that. The sense of scale of the height of the buildings, all that work. And I think you guys know all of that. The variety, the chairwoman mentioned, the diversity. If this project is developed correctly, those opportunities will be there. It's inherent in the project, the way you're designing it, and those opportunities. I really like those flex spaces that, if a guy has a small business or something, they're going to be able to get in there and really explore that. We just have to make sure that, we have some financing that can help with some of those, various, people that are financially challenged to develop a business. So that's something we need to help work on too. The visitors to the field house, one of the things I like about that is that there's going to be plenty of other things to do. If they're going to that field house for something, you're going to have, the way you're designed, you're going to have shopping, you're going to have a restaurant. If you want to just go out and walk around, so I think that all of those elements, it looks like you're incorporating into this. I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact, and you've heard me say this before, is I really want the site to work. I want it to function as one site. I don't want to have these isolated areas throughout. Even when the residential piece, I think it has to be good access to the rest of the site, and I think that there has to be a way people can navigate through that, the area where the housing is. And all in all, I really like where you're going. I think that, I think the county administrator is looking at some possible ways that we can help with some of the infrastructure on the front end, because I think that, that water feature, if we get total public access around it, it's almost going to act like a park, and it's going to be an attractor in itself. And if that can be done in the front end of this project, I think it's going to be an asset to you attracting tenants of this site. And so, it's not what the site is today, it's what it can be, and we have to start showing what it can be. That's what we're going to have to show. But all in all, I'm really pleased. I'm glad we selected you. I think the presentation is good. I think it's given all of us some food for thought. But the direction you're going, I'm very satisfied, and really look forward to working with you and working with the city of Vallejo as we bring this project forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Spring.
Go ahead, Board Member Du.
Thank you. I echo my colleagues' sentiments here. Very exciting to see all of the things that you have in this proposal. And very excited about the film studios, the backlot concept. I have long been championing that concept, and so very excited to see that as one of the first activators. And the makerspace as well. I've been following that category in the economy nationally, and it's been super exciting to see the development of that and see it actually coming to fruition out on Mare Island in the coal sheds currently, and in the historic core over there. So would love to see that. I think that would just be like a regional attraction. A couple of questions and concerns. So in the first presentation, you guys really elaborated and articulated the connection and the pedestrian pathway between Six Flags. And I see it kind of touched on here, but if you could talk a little bit more, if there's more thought around that.
Yeah, I think that the reason we didn't emphasize it in this presentation is because we have a lot of work to do with Six Flags, and we're not at the point where we're ready to present something that we're not quite sure of. But imagine it this way. Imagine if there was no conversation with Six Flags, how complementary the sites really are and how well they work together, because this is this kind of destination, whether you're going to Six Flags or you're coming to our property. Now, We don't envision that at all because we are going to have this great cohesive and collaborative relationship with them. We're going to take advantage of the fact that they are this great draw and that things should work together. But we're just not ready to present something tangible to you right now. But I would say as part of the draft plan too, we should have that feedback to understand what we can do together on a tangible basis.
And along those lines, the parking agreement
Yeah.
that we have with Six Flags, is that part of that conversation that will come?
Yeah, and we've always envisioned, that we need to accommodate that need. Mhm.
Awesome. And then just question around the movie theater. Of course, we already have an existing movie theater in Vallejo, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are in terms of how the two will exist.
You want me to answer that?
Yeah, Greg, you have.
Yeah, I think there's room in this market for them to coexist. I don't think it's an absolute that you have to have a theater on the side. I think it's one of the possibilities that we'd look at. And I think that we would be very differentiated in terms of that offering. Probably smaller auditoriums, certainly a much bigger proponent of food and beverage as a proportionate share of the building itself. And so I think they complement each other in this area. But I don't think we'd look at it as an absolute if there was a problem with it.
Yeah, that's great. And it did sound like it was a differentiated product type than what we have existing. So I could see how they could be complementary to each other. And I just did want to emphasize both of the comments regarding the equity and bridging disparities in our community, as well as how exciting it is to see the sequencing and activation intentionally thought of, and how you are going to have it just be a really vibrant, interactive site. So I'm very excited about all of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead. Supervisor Sparing, please.
I just want to clarify something, and maybe it's something we should talk about. This connection to Six Flags, I really don't support us putting any large financial commitment to that in the front end of this project. It takes away from infrastructure to start this project going. Now, if Six Flags is willing to put up the money and develop some strong pedestrian connection, I'm okay with that. But I agree with Councilwoman Pippin-Dew that we have to make sure it's planned and we know where it's going to go, how it's going to go, and how it's going to work with the plan. But I do not want to be putting any money into that at this phase because we have too much other infrastructure cost. And to be diverting it to that benefits them is just not a good business at this phase. So I just wanted to clarify that for me.
That's good to know. Thanks.
Yeah, and I appreciate Supervisor Sparing's comments as well. I do agree that, the major infrastructure should be focused on as a priority up front and, later in the sequencing. Unless exactly as he stated, if Six Flags, and I would think they would be interested in, building that bridge, metaphorically and literally. Thanks.
But I'm glad you raised it, that you got to plan for where it's going to be.
Yeah.
That's the key.
For that opportunity. You ready, Mayor? Okay.
Excuse me if perhaps I covered some things that aren't necessarily apparent to me because I've just arrived here. And normally what I've witnessed is that when you have infrastructure, you have to design your infrastructure upon the understanding of what's going to go onto the surface of the land. So just at this 500,000 foot level that we're at today, how would you see you're starting the infrastructure and the initial buildings that would go into this project initially?
Yeah.
Where do you start?
No, it's all about how we plan this moving forward, and that's the devil's in the details. To your point, you're exactly right. And when it's building infrastructure that is the correct infrastructure for which you have planned down the road, and that frankly is a bit flexible in case you have to switch course in future phases. And it is not overbuilding the infrastructure because of what you think might come down the road. And so that is a challenge, and it is a challenge that I think with the right experience that IRG brings to the table and the numerous projects that have been accomplished in the history of the company, and with the right team, we're going to mitigate those risks. Are they going to be eliminated? Are we going to do it perfectly? Probably not. But I think I think you've got a team here that's going to get pretty close to making the right call on that.
It's also, just to add to that, it's also meeting your infrastructure needs for each phase. So you're not necessarily running your utilities the whole length of the site. You know, when you're only building out on the northern part of the site, you can build them out as you need to, as you expand across the site.
Okay, well, most developers like to start with housing. Do you see housing as being one of your initial undertakings?
We didn't have it as a site activator because we're going to be barely there on the economics. So we don't think we're quite ready for that. We think if we give it a little bit of time and we activate the site, we're going to get there on the economics. That construction cost is, and we're going to have more flexibility. Right now, we're planning for what we call, walk-up space. We're not doing anything over a podium, for example, where you might have parking below or retail below because it's too expensive. But if we get the site activated and we bring some recognition to the site, now people are going to see this as an option to, areas in the South Bay or to the west or the east of here as a place they'd like to live. Further demand on some market rents that we think will help the economics and offset the expense of construction. So we don't see that in phase one.
Good, and you mentioned a hotel or two. Would you say the clientele in this hotel would mostly come from people on the road as travelers, or would it be a destination hotel like a convention center, or would it be a special theme type of hotel?
It becomes a destination. It becomes an option in a venue, particularly with the Field House and Six Flags. You now have the ability to say to people, you can come up here and have a conference, a meeting, a sporting event. You've got enough rooms between the two hotels that are on the site. You can get an experience that is integral to the rest of the site. It isn't just another hotel. It's got some thematic component to it. It becomes very saleable to folks as a destination. Let's go to Six Flags for 2 days. Let's go to Napa. We don't need to stay in Napa. We can stay down in Vallejo at this terrific hotel, take advantage of the fairgrounds, take advantage of the makerspace, and then go up into Napa and enjoy the wineries. And so we think it's an important component. The hotel has to be developed correctly. We like, so far we like affiliating with the larger brands through a soft brand that allows us this ability to create a theme to it. We also like the fact that the hotel can service catering needs throughout the site. It can help with catering on the fairgrounds. So it serves a number of different functions eventually. Not right away, but eventually we think it'll make sense.
Okay, well, most people like experiences these days. They want it for their memories. So if we look at Discovery Kingdom as being an experience of a theme park, how would you categorize the overall experience at this particular project?
Gosh, we have a developer in Southern California. His name is Rick Caruso. And Rick Caruso was influenced by one of my favorites and one of my, people that I look up to in the creative world is, Walt Disney. We do a lot of work with Disney. And it's giving people more than what they need. It's giving something to them that they really want. Mm-hmm. It's creating this vision and this dream. And I think the pushback that you get oftentimes is, well, that's really expensive. It doesn't need to be expensive. You've seen some of the imagery that we've created, that we provided that says it doesn't need to be expensive. But it needs to be thoughtful. It needs to be integral, and it needs to attract to the emotions of the guest. When they come here, they have an expectation. How can we exceed that expectation such that they don't walk from a parking lot into a retail building, but they meander down a DG path with tree-lined and some activity and interest that's going on? So for all intent and purposes, it becomes almost a downtown Disney, a Universal City walk, but it doesn't need to be expensively themed like that at all. Tin City, this project in Paso Robles, which I said is off the beaten path, is such an exciting place to go. It's such a discovery. I think Supervisor Spearing said something to the effect of, as you're walking, you discover something. Exactly. As you're walking from your car to the place that you're supposed to meet for dinner, but you happen to go through some buildings and find out that there's a homemade ice cream place, how exciting is that? And that is something that's a social currency that you'll share with everybody. And so we want to take advantage of those components. I think we all have experience, our team, with these entertainment companies. I know I do. And we're going to bring that to bear on the site. And that's why I said at the outset, think of this as an entertainment site.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. I've got quite a history in the entertainment background. In fact, the first time I met Supervisor Spearing was when he came to see me in a play. If I could recall you way back then. But you also have this vision about an entertainment venue in there. And are you envisioning that now as just a general performing arts, a concert venue, a sports venue? What type of actual entertainment venues or shows would be mounted in this facility?
Mayor McConnell, are you speaking of the field house on the fairgrounds?
Well, I saw somewhere in this package that I read through this morning that you anticipated having a entertainment venue with concerts and performance and things like that. I was just trying to get an idea of what type of performance activities you're envisioning as,
Right.
as working at this space.
Yeah, so we see that as the fairgrounds. So again, we feel like we ought to take advantage of these grounds, inside, outside, mix of sizes, mix of spaces. The centerpiece being this functional, flexible field house that's developed at the right size, with the right use. And for me to clearly define for you what that is today would be difficult. But
Okay.
our definition to the planners and architects are, we want to have concerts, we want to have shows, we want to have sporting events, and we don't want to spend an absolute fortune because of what it is and where it is. We want to make this affordable for the community and come and enjoy these events. So we have to design and construct this properly. And I think one of the visions we showed of the field house is kind of spot on. We think that that's going to work really well to have a variety of different functions. So you might have, frankly, a world-class concert one weekend, and the following week you might have indoor volleyball tournament where you've now created an ability to attract those tournaments because the site offers everything it needs to offer, and so does the overall community. And by the way, the overall community does. So they're not only coming for this site, they're coming because of what's going on in Mare Island and downtown Vallejo and across the I-80. There now is a purpose and a reason and a variety of things that the site offers because of it.
Well, one of the types of performance venues that's missing in the San Francisco Bay Area is a large performance facility. We have large facilities in Sacramento, Oakland, San Jose, San Francisco, nothing here in Solano County. And of course, a large number of the performing bands and shows are national touring. A promoter friend of mine has pointed out to me that if this particular facility can be created in such a manner that you can provide a venue for larger performances, like in a rock concert of, say, 10 to 15, maybe 20,000 people, and you have a luxury hotel here, you then have the ability as a promoter to offer to a touring group the opportunity to spend 5 days in one hotel, which when you're on the road is a huge draw. And they can drive 1 hour to Sacramento, 45 minutes to Oakland, hour and 15 to San Jose, and an hour into San Francisco. So I would like to see something like that kept in mind at this level as to a distinct possibility. I think it's sorely needed, and it would be a huge, huge draw because it would attract people from all over the Bay Area and Northern California to this area, because a lot of people from the north do not want to cross the Bay Bridge to go to a concert or anything else for that matter. So if we could at least consider that as a potential, I would very, very much like to see that, and I think it's sorely needed in this project. So I have some other ideas, but so far let's just keep moving and
Great, I like the feedback.
move ahead, okay? Thank you.
Well, I was going to make a comment on that slide. If you can bring Prince back, then I think we've got a thing going on here. So thank you.
I have some bad news for you.
I'd go again. Yeah, great. Well, we have some action to take today, and the first item in regards to the plan is to provide input and affirm the proposed uses consistent with the adopted specific plan. Are we actually going to make a vote on that? Okay. So have we provided enough input? Do you feel like we've provided enough input and we can affirm the proposed uses? These are proposed, consistent with the adopted specific plan, and like was shared in the beginning, these are the ideas. I would add, I do like Mayor McConnell and Councilmember do appreciate the fact that you're not starting with residential. That seemed to be like how everybody wanted to go, and for me, it's personally a non-starter, but having activators and identifying them as such as experiences is, I think, a much better process, and I appreciate that you laid it out that way as well and confirmed. So I'm okay with going forward. Does somebody want to offer the
Yeah, I'll offer a
motion?
motion that the proposed uses are consistent with the adopted specific plan, and that would be the motion.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Do you want to do a roll call vote, Alicia, please?
Committee Member Spearing,
Yes?
Committee Member Dew, Committee Member McConnell, and Chairwoman Hannigan.
Yes. And then our next item to vote on is direct staff to continue coordination with IRG and JLL, the team, on refining and developing a proposed action plan. Do you want to move the motion, Mr. McConnell?
With the team on the refining and development of a proposed land plan.
Great.
If you could add in consideration of the comments they heard today.
Okay, in consideration of the comments.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Alicia?
Committee Member Spearing, Committee Member Dew, Committee Member McConnell,
Yes.
and Chairwoman Hannigan.
Yes. Thank you. I'm always encouraged and excited about the site every time you come forward. I really appreciate the vision. I think it is, it's not that cookie cutter local mall or regional mall kind of approach, and that is very much appreciated that you are taking in consideration just all the aspects of our county, from agriculture to Mare Island, and putting it right there on the site. So
Yeah, I just want to take this moment to say that I think the reason that we have been successful today is because of the guidance of James and Nancy and Tom. They really have given us terrific guidance, pushed us, I think, in the right direction, and we really appreciate the feedback and the input and really enjoying the relationship.
yeah, great. Thank you. We are too. I think they are too. Got a thumbs up.
I hope
There we
so.
go.
Monday's off.
Thank you. Oh, if we have it. How many callers? You just want to ask them if they want to make them? Okay.
Callers, if you are calling in to speak at this meeting today regarding one of the items, please press *6 and unmute yourself and state your name.
You have 3 minutes.
You would have 3 minutes for public comment. Ma'am, they are not unmuting themselves.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a great trip.
Excuse me one moment. Mr. Taylor,
Oops.
did you unmute yourself?
Yes, I did. I had a great presentation. I have no comments.
Okay, thank you.
Looking forward to the future.
Thank you, sir.
That's a good thing. Me too. All right. We'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you so much.
Good job.